All right, it's a little bit before 7, but we will get going. By the time I'm done with everything, it should be right spot on 7 o'clock. So good evening, everyone. Thank you to the Berlin Select Board meeting for Monday, December 13th. We are meeting virtual because of nasty COVID. All right, let's see. So we have a call to order. Look at that, right at 7 o'clock. Boom, chakalaka. Announcements, meetings of the Berlin Select Board are generally recorded for transmission on both the Berlin Cable Television Access Channel and YouTube. Your voice, image, and or phone number may be recorded. All right, so we'll get this back over there. All right, so first up is the approval of the minutes from last week.
Motion to approve, but I did have a suggested change. You want me to go over that first?
Yeah.
I'll second and then you can go over it. Sure.
Okay. I don't think the board took a vote on number 4.
True, you did not.
So it should at least be taken out of that paragraph that said the board voted 3-0, so on and so forth.
Okay.
So I'll ask Mary to remove it from this section and note that it was discussed. That's
Right.
Okay. All right, so motion with changes, Scott seconded, put it up to a vote. Stone eye.
Hawkins, aye.
Keith, aye.
All right, Margaret, thank you for making note of that change. Appreciate it. All right, correspondence there, Mrs. Nadowitz.
Okay, we'll focus on one subject area for now. So the board received a petition last week from Mary Porter, who had collected signatures from residents in the Carter and Highland Street area. This is regarding putting stop signs at the intersection of Carter and Highland and another stop sign at the intersection of Randall and Highland. Following receipt of that petition, a couple of neighbors, 3 neighbors, submitted emails to the select board asking that the community be involved in discussions regarding possible alternatives to stop signs. So I have contacted those individuals who emailed the board and noted that the Traffic Safety Advisory Committee will be meeting on Tuesday, December 21st, next Tuesday at 5:30 p.m., at which time they'll have an opportunity to discuss possible alternatives and just participate in a broader discussion with the Traffic Safety Advisory Committee. So that's where we stand right now on that.
All right, thank you, Miss Margaret. Appreciate that. We have a few folks in the audience. Hello, Amy, June, Sue, and of course, Chief Clark that we'll talk to in a couple seconds. Any comments from those folks? If so, raise your hand. All right, done, gone. All right, so.
Oh, excuse me, Peg. I just want to note that that Traffic Safety Advisory Committee will be held meeting will be held virtually, and it's posted on My Town Government. So the Zoom
Okay.
link is there for anybody who wants to attend.
Awesome, thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Sure.
All right, I know we're whizzing along, so Chief Clark is normally up at 7:10, but since it's 7:03, should we bring him on board? Or do you want to go through your TA report? Up to you, Miss Margaret.
If the board is okay with promoting Chief Clark, he can go first. There's no action for the board to vote on during this appointment, so I don't think there'd be an issue with it. So,
All right,
I'll promote
Chief
him.
Clark, come on down. You're the next contestant on the select board meeting. Here he comes. Oh, before he comes on, where is he? I say he's at the town office. No, he's home. Yeah. All right, next time we vote. Next time we vote before we let him come up and see where he is. Hi, Chief.
Good evening, everybody. I missed that. It was coming online there, so I missed what you were talking about.
Oh, I wanted to guess where you were. That sometimes you're at the town offices and sometimes you're home. So I was trying to guess where you were tonight. I guess
Tonight I'm home in my office. Yep.
there you go. All right, Chief. Well, take it away. We're going to give you a few extra
Okay.
minutes before we bring on Jill at 7:20. So the floor is yours.
Okay, it's nice to see everybody. And I'll quickly review our activity report for November. 59 total incident responses, one serious structure fire that we have already, I think, had some discussion on. There was 22 fire-related type responses, 28 EMS responses, 6 motor vehicle accidents, and assist the police department with 2 specific incidents that they had that we came along and just helped them out. It's a two-way street that way with us, with the blue team and the red team. Any questions on that? The Gates Pond is still under investigation. I haven't heard any specific cause of origin report yet from the State Police Fire Investigation Unit, and it's like that sometimes is a while before you see the report. So anything changes, I'll bring you up to speed, but nothing new to report on that. We got some training scheduled. There's defensive driving that we're going in for 22, and just today we had the ability to set up some really good interior firefighting training. They're what they call a flashover simulator. Mass Fire Academy's got it, park it in the driveway of the firehouse, and they simulate a fire, and you go in it, and it actually flashes over your head, similar to what you could encounter in real life out in the street. On the street, they're not fun, and it's like it just gives you some situational awareness prior to getting it on the real street. So it's like really, really good training. I love to see new firefighters come out of it, and the eyes are like huge, like, oh my God. So it's like, it's fun. It puts a smile on my face. They get it when I see that, you know what I mean? The importance of knowing that, what it's like, how it develops, what you do to prevent it. And second and third, and probably the most critical is how you move to get out of it when it happens to you. So it's like, yeah, it's challenging on the street when it happens. I've had my share of them, and it's like, it is just, it's training. It's got to be instinctive because you have no time to react at all. So it's like, hopefully this is what the training will lead us to for safer street operations when the guys are in real fires. We did have a couple of fires. We went up and helped out Bolton on. One was an attached garage on Saturday, and one was like an out structure. I believe it was last Tuesday night. And like, not too late, just after 10 or just after midnight, something like that at night. So right on Main Street. So it was like, just help them out, do whatever they need you to do to help, and then go home. So it's like that simple. So that's where we are with that. Any questions so far?
Nope.
Not yet.
Okay. The fire activity, I haven't seen the fire prevention activity report yet, but as soon as I have that and can review it, I'll ship that off to Mary, and she can share it with you. And we'll go from there. The EMS collections is there. We had another decent billing month, and the numbers are there, and they're being pretty consistent, and I'm happy with the consistency. And it was some of the things, it's a little bit slower than usual, but it's one of those things that we don't have a lot of control. We bill for everything, and it rolls in as it rolls into Coastal Medical, our vendor. So, but you can see the totals to date yet for FY22. We're almost halfway through the year, so it's like it's looking good. Compared to some of the past years, and we're in good shape with that. And I know that Scott always has an opinion of his past experience there, like, you know, a good one. Like, I say it respectfully. He's watched us for a long time, and so it's in a good direction, and it's in a good spot. So I'm happy with that, and it's a total team effort all the way from the guys on the street all the way up to the TA in June. Working on the other end on the financial side of it. So I thank everybody. Everyone's doing a fantastic job. And not really that much to talk about tonight. It's like the guys are at EMS training tonight. I'm not an EMT anymore, and I try to make the most of them, but tonight, I just couldn't get up there in time to do that, so I jumped on with you guys at 7 here, and it is what it is. But that's kind of like the report. Everything's running well at the station. Everything's moving. So it's like day at a time in the trenches. Just keep going. Look forward. Don't look back unless you need to, which is rare, and keep going. That simple. And all your
It's
staff
nice.
is doing a fantastic job.
It's nice that your total responses are down. Well, and I realize that December still has 18 more days to go, but you're about 100 behind from where you were
Yeah,
last year this time.
yeah.
Okay. And how's the new truck? How's the new big pumper truck?
It got a test. It got tested in the tender. Tanker didn't go to the second fire in Bolton, but it spent some time working the first one. So it's like, yeah, it's like, yeah, that's one of those things. It's going to be, there's 20 plus years of quality equipment sitting there for the town of Berlin. So it's moving forward. So it's like, it's made to last, and it's kind of, and I look at it and I tell a lot of people the analogy I have is it's a full toolbox. It does a lot of different things. We replaced 2 vehicles, and we're in really good shape with it. And it's like, does a lot of different things really, really well. So it's like today they were talking about some brush fires out in the highway. And I said, yep, we'll send the brush truck and send the tender with it. And it's like, so we have a lot of water, and we didn't end up going. It was a little bit more north. They thought we were going to get involved. So it's like, but nope, it's really good. Doing well. All the other apparatus. I think we're finally through, with the exception of our SCBA, which is the tanks that we wear. Those have to be checked yearly.
Mhm.
We had all of our equipment. The hose has been tested. The trucks have been inspected and get this annual DOT stickers. We ran into a little bit of problem on the ladder testing. There was some, we had to send out to a third-party vendor on the ladder to get the support, the jack system tightened up, needed to be torqued to a certain level. It was a little loose, wasn't at all a safety factor, but just one of those things that you got to keep on top of. And I think for the first time in a long time, and I kind of like gave him the German Shepherd look when I asked the question about it, was we did pump maintenance, which is in Berlin is really critical because, you know, most communities, they deal with fire hydrants that have pressure in them already. So the pumps need to be in fairly good shape. In Berlin, you have to draft all the water and use the pumps to their capacity and to what they're made for, and from dry hydrants or water source. And we had some issues with those that we had to have some parts replaced to make them back to top shelf. But it wasn't anything that seriously impacted it, but we just get more GPM out of them now than we did before. And interesting to see, we already made a note to check next year when we do our pump testing. This was pump maintenance, but the testing, if we improve on our water flow from the 2 engines. So it's like, it's just kind of like a process you go through, and they had to replace some parts, and but it's all part. I had a chief tell me Ken, it's a part of cost of doing business. So it's like, we just got it done, and we're back out, and everything was out of service maybe half a day while they do all the work on it. They brought it to the highway garage, and they have a really good tool selection down there and good spot with a lot of nice light. And the guy worked in a bay down there half a day on each piece, and we got a good report on it afterwards, and he replaced the things that he needed to replace, and we're back up, and I'm very, very comfortable with where our fleet is right now, ready to go operationally. It's in really good shape. So it's like, that's good. That's always a good thing to report to you, instead of calling up and saying like, yeah, we got something down or out of service or something like that. But no, I'm happy with it. It's like, and that's where we are. That's where your red team is for the month of November.
I, of course, have like one more question, but I'll go last. So Scott, Chris, any questions for Chief?
No, I don't have anything.
Chief, when it comes to storage of fire equipment and stuff, everything you folks use is stored at town offices? Or in the fire area?
I'm not
Yes,
sure when
you
you
have-
say fire equipment, like all of our wheeled apparatus.
Well, so so the more direct question is, are you using any storage in any other building in town besides the
Oh,
fire
okay.
section
Thank
of
you.
town
Yeah.
offices?
I'm with you now, Scott. Thanks. I think there's a little bit of older equipment that's in that building. I've only been in it twice. The one that used to be the firehouse over on 62 there on West Street. But it's like some ground ladder storage. I think there's an old, and I haven't seen it run yet, but I'm told that we could start up by after charging the battery. That is the first motorized piece that the town of Berlin had is like parked in the cellar, and it's out of the weather there, and that's there. And it's kind of like in some miscellaneous ancillary equipment might be in there, but everything that we use is trailers are out behind the station, so we have quick access to them. And yeah, there's some in there, but to be honest with you, I've never been upstairs in the place, but I know there was a good storage of old ground ladders in that truck. So it's like I haven't even been in the rescue building. Never been in it.
Okay.
That
I
answer your
think that, I
question?
mean, that is a fine answer for now. It is sort of part of the what we are storing where in town
Yeah.
sort of pieces. And so at least the answer is nothing you use everything you use regularly is at town offices. And if there's ancillary stuff in other buildings, it is not important for day-to-day operations.
I think the only thing that we don't have there that I'm sitting here thinking about it is the lighting tower. It's at the DPW building inside.
Mhm.
So it's like, that's a thing, it's like a trailer with a big
Mhm.
light that goes up in the air. You see them at the town meeting and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But that's like with Freddie and Jimmy
Right.
attached to the IARs, that if we needed that, that would be on the road in seconds.
Yep.
So,
Yep. And I know Highway is storing some things. It is trying to sort of slowly dig into things that might have been stored in a place decades ago that people have generally forgotten about, and whether or not we want to start moving it out so we have room to store things we really want to be holding on to.
well, the only thing I would say to that, maybe there's something that I'm not aware of, but sitting right
Yep.
here, nope. And if I'll ask some
Well,
questions tomorrow. Mike
yep.
Will is a good reference for
Yep.
that because he's like been in town forever. So it's like, but I can find out if there's any surprises that I get, you guys will know about it.
Okay, thanks.
You're
Right,
welcome.
so Chief, I had one quick question. I know that you used to send these reports out and, you know, I'm happy that we're not getting them, but with the rise of Omicron, or however you say it, the new COVID variant that's whizzing around, how is Berlin doing as a whole? How are your people, you know, staying protected when you're either, you know, at the station or when you're on calls? You know, just want to make sure that your team is safe and protected.
Two things. One, we're not getting the information that we used to have for some reason from DPH, from shared Berlin-specific information with Neshoba Valley Regional Health, and Jim Gareffi would send that to in an email to both the dispatch up in Neshoba Valley Regional and to me. I was assigned by the Board of Health, I think, when that first started. Then I would generate a list for the red and the blue teams with simple thing as a street address and maybe how many people were maybe positive at a street address, and that was it. No names, never got a name, don't even know.
Don't want a name.
I don't know anything about them. Some people can tell by addresses who's where, what, I can't. So it's like, but they stopped doing that like a week and a half to 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
And it was kind of surprising because it kind of gave us a little bit of an edge going in someplace. The dispatch had a word that used a confirmed isolation location was the term. And we knew that we had to like be a little bit extra careful. They're always careful and go from there. And, but for some reason they stopped doing it. And when I sent the email to find out why and how important it was, I didn't get a return. So it's
Right.
like, I got to kick that can again.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
it's
so
like,
Yeah, so given that, I'm going to assume that your team is probably going in fully masked, God forbid, there's a call at blah, blah, blah street and you don't know who's behind that door, and what they have, vaccinated, non-vaccinated, kind of, sort of, that, your team is taking every precaution to make sure that they're safe.
Yeah, I think they have. The number one thing that we started from the very beginning was you limit your liability, minimize the personnel that need to be on scene. And you ask questions before you go in. And a minimum mask, most people, when they're on duty, carry an N95 close by or in one of the go bags that they're carrying, so they can instantly go up to a higher level of protection. And it's a little bit more challenging now, but they do it. We did have one of our members test positive a week ago, and I did some testing. Saturday was negative for me, and people know what they need to do, and we have to be better in our building during training so that we don't have any issues moving forward. And we've done some communications with all the personnel. Everyone's aware of it, and it was very transparent right from the very beginning. So we have to move forward. Again, it's like I said before, on a different issue.
Yeah.
You learn and you move forward and you just be better the next time. So it's like, that's how we have to look at it. And people needed to be tested, and I haven't heard of anybody that, other than that, and it wasn't even a fire department related issue where that came from. So it's like, it's to be honest with you, it's our new norm now. We deal with it every day, and it's like not fun, but it is what it is, and we have to be good at it. And we had a little bit of a breakdown last week, but it was also a good thing to drive home the fact that we can't let our guard down. So it's like, it's a learning and process, and we have to move forward. It's like, it's going to be there for a while. It's not something that's, I don't think anybody can say it's going to go away soon.
Yeah, I don't know when it's
You just got to be vigilant, and
Yep.
not let your guard down. And it's like, we let our guard down, and I have to say we collectively, because we were all there, and it's like, and it is what it is. So.
All right. No, I was just wondering in general, you hear the news. I just, I came in watching the news and, breaking news, no beds, blah, blah, blah. So I just wanted to make sure that, the red team, and then when, Chief Shartner shows up, I'll ask him the same question, how the blue team is doing in terms of like stopping cars and things like that, and just making sure that they're safe. It's safe, along with your EMS crew too, just want to make sure that everyone's good to go.
Yep. And I just wanted to, I didn't know if you heard about that from our department or not, but it's not something, I feel like we have to be, when someone says something or asks a question, we have to be transparent about it.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's easy to beat around the bush and answer the question and not say anything, but it's, we had a little bit of a wake-up call last week, so it's like,
Well, the chief even, and I hadn't heard anything, but the big thing is that you learn, as you said, you learn and you go forward. Mistakes are made, we all make them, no one's perfect, but you recognize it, you put plans in place, and onward you go. So the past is gone, and tomorrow is tomorrow, and as long as you guys are good, then
she just came in and climbed right up in my lap. She must have heard the voices.
Oh,
You gotta tip your thing down.
I know, Chief, you gotta pull your camera down a little bit. Oh my
I'm-
God.
Oh, beautiful.
I know, I
it-
know. Oh my God. I know, we gotta go. Jill's
Yeah.
waiting in the audience for us, but
I wasn't aware that Neshoba is not communicating with Berlin's Fire and EMS anymore. So Chief, I will also reach out to Jim Garafi and find out what's going on up there, because I do understand that we had 15 new cases last week in Berlin. So you're absolutely right. We can't let our guard down. And those communications can only help your department. So I will contact Jim tomorrow also.
I don't think it's due to Jim or his organization. It's DPH releasing the information to them.
Oh, okay.
So I think it's like another step up the ladder from them. They've been fantastic to work with. They have a girl over there that helped us last week work through our issues with Tamara, and she was awesome. Sent down some written email instructions, do this, and within like 10 minutes of talking with them. So it's like that's a great organization. They've been really, really good to work with, and they've been very like spot on all the way through since the very, very beginning. So it's like I can just say nothing but good things about Jim and his organization. Just for someone just pulled the plug on that, and it's just not for Berlin. I believe it's for all the communities that they deal with. So tomorrow I got a note to reach out to some of the fire chiefs to say, hey, what are you doing? And what don't you know now? And then it's like, maybe it's time for FCAM to get involved and start saying, hey, we're on the street every day. Just give us a fighting chance. We're going to do it. But just help us so that we know an address. That's we don't want to know anybody's name. We don't want to know anything else. Just give us a street address.
Yeah.
That's all it was. So it's like, it's kind of like they get, I don't know what to say about the state that they would stop doing that. I don't understand it, but it's like, but they're certainly the people that aren't dealing with it on the street. All I can say, and that's all I'm gonna keep it like that and try to keep my mouth shut on it, because it's like easy to get in and say something that I'll regret later, but it's like, got to keep the street people safe, and that's my people. So it's like, I have a hard time with that, keeping my mouth shut when it comes to that some days.
Well, I mean, Chief, that's who you are. You know, you take care of your team and everybody else in town. So, you know, thank you for all you do. Thank you for what your team does. Absolutely stay safe. And, you know, we will see you, and hopefully I'll get down there on a Friday sometime and see the dog.
Yeah, the white devil Luna, yeah. Okay,
Cool.
everyone,
All right.
if I don't see everybody, have a great holidays.
Oh,
Take
you
care.
too, Chief. Take care.
Thank you.
All
Yeah.
righty. Thank
Be
you.
safe. Take
Bye-bye.
care.
All right. Next up, a wee bit behind, is Jill, who is in the audience, or was. There she is.
While Jill and Dennis are coming up, I was going to do just a bit of an introduction before Jill's refresher, just noting the contract that was executed by the board and Cook and Company in October of 2020. And there were a number of services that Cook and Company were to provide under the contract. One of which was reviewing the possibility of health insurance plan design changes with the possible exploration of funding retiree health benefits. So I just, Jill's got a recap for you. I can't believe it's already been a year since she's been here,
Wow.
but here she is.
Yay. Hi, Jill.
Before Jill gets started.
Oh, that's right. You were
Peg,
gonna make
I
an
wanted to
announcement.
I need to make a statement. Because my husband and I have been getting health insurance through the town since I got on the select board. And I decided to call ethics last week about whether I should participate in this agenda item. I told the attorney that I spoke to that we're a 3-member board and about this item on the agenda tonight, and he advised me to abstain from this item on the agenda tonight until we can determine whether this could affect me financially in a positive or negative way. It's my understanding that if it has no effect, I could participate. So I will keep you all posted on this, as I'm going to continue to communicate with this attorney from ethics.
Okay.
So I'll
And
just,
then, go ahead. And thank you, Chris. I forgot that you wanted to say something. You know me, if I don't write it down, gone.
oh,
So,
same here, same
yeah.
here.
Yeah. All right.
It could put
Well,
us in an interesting place that if all 3 of us ended up getting insurance from the town, that none of us could ever vote on this.
Right.
uh,
You know, I kind of equate it to when I was on school committee and we used to vote increases in the lunch prices, and we had kids in the school.
Mhm.
And so but we were allowed to do that. So
No,
I don't
I
know.
think on ethics issue, it is always better to take the more conservative
Mhm.
approach and
Right.
announce a potential conflict than it is to like discover this 6 months
After the
later, or
fact.
then suddenly,
Correct.
right after the fact, then suddenly everything we've done is now called into question. We got to start everything off from scratch. So no,
Right.
I appreciate it, Chris. Thanks.
All
Yep.
right. All right, so Miss Jill, Mr. Dennis, welcome. Lovely to see you both. I will turn the floor over to you.
Hi, it's nice to see everybody again. I can't believe it's been a year since the last time we were all together. So I can't believe we're still doing Zoom meetings, but at least you get to see the beautiful pond behind me. So I do have a bit of an agenda, and I apologize for that, but I wanted to just really take advantage of the opportunity that we have tonight and try to make it as productive as possible. Because to Margaret's point, you guys have got me under contract and I wanted to deliver. So there are a few agenda items, and I don't know if the agenda has been shared with everyone, Margaret.
It has.
Okay, great. I'm happy to share my screen, but if not, I'm just gonna kind of go through the agenda that was shared with everybody. The first item I actually did not put on the agenda, but I think it might be helpful if I just kind of talk to you a little bit about the municipal healthcare landscape right now and just the health insurance market in Massachusetts, and just so that you can have an idea of, where Berlin is in that mix, because there's been a lot going on, and I think it will be helpful to this board to kind of just recognize, where you're at. So before I get into the full agenda, I just wanted to kind of give you a high level overview of what's happening in the marketplace. And some of these things you probably have heard about, and I may have even mentioned the last time we met that Fallon Health Plan has announced that they will be leaving the commercial market as of July 1st, 2022. And that has actually caused quite a bit of controversy and, a bit of a domino effect in the municipal market, because many of our joint purchase groups, so similar to the Maya Health Trust that the town of Berlin is in, Maya only has Blue Cross Blue Shield, but many of the other joint purchase groups in Massachusetts offer multiple carriers, and Fallon is a very strong player in most of those communities. And in some of the joint purchase groups, they are the lowest cost offering. So now we have a low cost plan going away, and many cities and towns based their contribution strategies for how they were going to provide health insurance to their employees based on these low cost plans. So meaning many of them gave incentives saying, we'll give you a higher contribution if you choose this low cost plan. So many of these communities, particularly in the West Suburban Health Group, which is sort of the Metro West geographic region of the state, are really grappling with what they're going to do to fill that void. Blue Cross Blue Shield seems to have stepped up in that particular situation and said that they're going to artificially lower their rates for that group so that they can sort of buffer this first year and not bust everybody's budgets. So that's been happening. It also affects all of the other joint purchase groups in the state. So luckily it does not affect Maya, which does not affect the town of Berlin. And it will also affect the GIC, which is the state and municipal plan for the Group Insurance Commission. So the GIC is actually going to be going through their 3-year RFP process for FY23. So that's happening, and Fallon will no longer be an incumbent carrier. And then on top of the Fallon announcement, we know that Tufts and Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare have merged. So Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare and Tufts actually have already joined forces, and they've renamed their company Point 32 Health. And they really don't think that's going to affect the municipal market and existing business until 2024. But that is also something that all of the joint purchase groups, as well as the GIC, are contending with for the next 2 years. So there's a lot of disruption going on right now with all of the joint purchase groups, except for Maya and the other groups that only have Blue Cross Blue Shield. So with that, I guess I would say that you guys are in the right place right now, and it's really the most stable situation that you could be in probably for the next 2 years.
Good.
So that's kind of the high level of what's happening. And then to kind of give you a little bit more granular of what to expect with Maya, because of course that is where you're getting your insurance right now. We know that the Maya Health Trust has been doing very well. It's been growing. I think they're up to 140 member communities now, which is really strong. And they, again, just Blue Cross Blue Shield, they set a rate range every year for their members to have rates of increase. So really they set sort of a minimum, a maximum rate of increase, and then an average. And all of the members in the Maya Trust will receive something in that range based on how your utilization and your claims are. So recently we met with the Maya representative and to kind of get the lay of the land and what to expect for FY23. And she did share with Dennis and Margaret and I that the medical trends are running around 8%. So that's without really looking at your own experience, just looking at medical inflation in general, is running about 8%. And that's pretty much what I'm hearing, 7 to 8.5% with all of the carriers. So that aside, how do we expect the town of Berlin's renewal to be? And that's really the tricky question. Maya's been able to keep their rates relatively low, and that rate range has been pretty low the last couple of years. So they do think that just to be on the safe side, you might want to budget between an 8 to 10% increase just to be conservative. And I know that Tara, the representative, did share with us your claims ratio. You're running at about a 98%, which means for every dollar you're sending to Maya for premiums, they're paying out 98 cents for claims. And that's a little bit high. So it's not terrible. I've seen worse, but it doesn't leave a lot of room for administrative costs, risk reserves, and then in the last year and a half, COVID factors, which unfortunately we're contending with. So I don't like to be the bearer of bad news, but I do think it would be prudent to maybe budget between 8 to 10% this year. So that's kind of the landscape that we're contending with. Does anyone have any questions on those items? I know I just threw a lot at you already. Before I move on to the other agenda items. Okay, you guys are with me. Okay, well, the other bigger items on the agenda were really just to refresh your memories on what we talked about last time, which was Chapter 32B, Sections 21 through 23. I do want to talk to you about, as Margaret mentioned, retiree health plan contributions, and we can have a discussion about that. I have updated the timeline that we looked at last year, which is really a calendar for invoking sections 21 through 22. And then I also wanted to talk to you about a flexible spending account, and then talk about how you'd like to proceed. So that's really in short order what I wanted to discuss. So the first item being the refresher on Chapter 32B, Sections 21 through 23.
Excuse me, Jill, you're welcome to share the screen if you'd like to at any point.
Okay, you know what? I will do that just because it's a little bit easier. Thank you, Margaret. Okay, can everyone see my screen?
Yep.
Indeed.
Great. So part of the reason that we wanted to talk to you about why it's important to look at this again, just to remind you, you already did adopt sections 21 through 23. So now, you have the ability to kind of sit on that and kind of get your ducks in a row and decide what you want to do with it. There's no time frame that you have to do anything. But if you decide that you do want to do some things and you try to meet some goals, then that's where this timeline will come in. So I'm going to go over that with you. But there are some reasons to look at invoking this statute and making health plan changes. And the health plan changes would go into effect July 1st of 22. If you were to do that, they would it would reduce the premiums for all of the employees, and it would produce a savings to the town. So both the employees and the town would share in the savings. And I believe I think the savings was, let's see, the first year savings, if you were to go to the plan that matches the GIC benchmark, would be a total reduction in premium of $105,000, depending on how your enrollment is in July. So about $105,000. And then the statute requires that the first 25% of the savings be returned to your labor groups and to the employees. So that would be $26,345. And that would leave the town with a net savings for the first year of $51,228, give or take. And so $51,000 for the first year. And then the second year, you don't have to give any of there is no mitigation dollars that you have to give back. So you would see the full cost avoidance in year 2. So you would basically see another $77,000 of the town's share of premium reduction in year 2. And I can go through that analysis with you, but I'm just trying to keep this kind of high level. But if you'd like me to drill down further, I'm happy to do that. So first of all, the main reason to invoke sections 21 through 22 is to find that savings, right? So you're going to reduce everybody's costs. And it also would bring you on par and to the level that most cities and towns have gone to with their health insurance plan. So it would streamline your policies to be more in line and more, it would contain costs better going forward. And it would also help you achieve some of your long-term goals. So what are those long-term goals? That's really the question. One of them is to reduce cost to your health insurance plan over time. So when you're able to reduce this plan, your rates of increase will typically be lower because it costs less to deliver that health care to the employees that are using it. Of course, the employees will be paying more out of their pocket. So it does depend on, which way you want to look at it. But there is a mitigation process that helps those employees pay for that increased cost. And then the other goal is really the second bullet item is to look at covering retiree health insurance and contributing toward that premium. So you could use the savings from this plan design change as a launching pad to fund your retiree insurance. And then that would give you a starting point. And of course, other strategies would probably need to be implemented as well. But this would be a nice starting point for you if offering coverage to retirees is a priority. So just to remind you, you have already adopted sections 21 through 23. And invoking would mean you decide to then go through the process to implement the change. So that is what I will go through in a minute when we talk about the calendar and the timeline, so that you can see exactly what that would look like. But that kind of brings me to the next bullet point, which is funding of retiree health plans and the contributing toward that. So I will be honest, I work with, Cook and Company. We work with over 50 cities and towns and school districts in Massachusetts. And you are the only client that I have that does not offer retiree health contributions. It's not unheard of, but it's very rare. And I know that it's been a little bit of a challenge from an HR perspective for retention of employees and for, just being a competitive employer. And so I think you might want to consider what other cities and towns are doing, what your peer communities are doing, because what happens is likely that the town of Berlin may be putting resources into training and, different kinds of projects and programs for your staff. And then once they realize that once they retire, that we're not going to get that benefit, they may decide to move on and retire from another community. So it's a difficult situation, because you're putting those resources in and then losing them to another town. So I think as far as being competitive, that would be a really compelling reason to consider offering retiree insurance. But of course, it comes at a large cost. And so that's what this board needs to consider is, does it make sense to do it? And we know, of course, that starting a contribution toward retiree insurance requires an OPEB funding, right? So OPEB being other post-employee benefits. And so earlier in the year, Margaret and Dennis and I actually met with an OPEB actuary, and they found some very interesting information that funding retiree insurance over time would be costly. So it's something that we have to be very thoughtful if that decision is made.
I'm sorry, Jill, when you say costly, could you put some numbers out there for me? Like, is costly $5, $500, $5 billion? I'd like to know the ballpark we're dealing in.
A valid question, Scott. Yes, absolutely. So looking at long-term, so OPEB is, out into the future. So it certainly wouldn't be an immediate cost, but looking at your population, they suggested that it would be around a $4 million liability over time.
And that $4 million is to cover the current liabilities. We would still have to, on top of that $4 million, we'd have to fund annually for new employees or as we sort of age out.
No, actually it's a future liability. So the immediate, actually, Margaret, do you know what the immediate estimate was? Did they give us?
I can check the study. If you give me.
And when you say 4 million in the future, are we again talking 5 years, 10 years, 100 years? When do we have to have when would about be the ballpark to have the $4 million?
Well, it would be something that you would fund over time, like steadily. So you would not need to have that lump sum altogether.
Right, but what's the end date? Like, again, are we talking about like a mortgage? Like I have to have this in about 20 years, or I need to have it in about 50 years or 5 years? Because $4 million over 5 years is a lot of money, but $4 million over 120 years is not much at all.
Right. No, that's also a very good point. I apologize. I'm trying to remember I think it was 30 years, but I don't want to be quoted on that.
That might put me in the right ballpark area.
It was certainly decades, Scott. It was not an immediate, it was several decades out. And I'm sorry, Margaret, did you have something?
I don't.
Okay.
I don't yet. I'm looking.
Okay. So it was, let's just say, I believe it was 2040, but Dennis, you might be remembering better than me.
Well, you don't have to. put anything-
Measurement end date is June 30th, 2051.
51. Okay.
30
Thank
years.
you. Thank you, Margaret.
I think that's the right date.
So then we're looking at, if I do math, we all know Peg's issues with math. June stopped laughing.
30 years.
All
30
right,
years.
so like 134,000 a year that Berlin
Yes.
would have to come up with? Okay,
And that's just to get to the, what we should have in
right.
an endowment. I'm missing the wrong term, but like,
OPEB trust fund.
right. Right. And so again, we would have to put money in on top of that, because once we have the $4 million, that's not going to cover us forever, is it?
Correct.
No, I think what we'd have to do, the town would have to maintain funding. So that $4 million would be the OPEB liability funded at 100%. And as time went on, you'd have to start factoring out in the future from that and continuing to make sure that you're funded at 100%.
I mean, what I keep thinking about is, our Worcester retirement liability that goes up by 10 or 15% a year that always says, oh, we're only 5 years away from being fully funded. And it's been that way for 50 years. And so it keeps going up way more than cost of inflation. It's eating a huge chunk of our budget. And it's not the way that for-profit businesses, and I know we're not a for-profit business, but people keep talking about how government should behave more like business, that those are not type of benefits that you're seeing in the business sector, because it bankrupts companies. It has,
Right, and
big companies even.
nor would the town be making investments that large retirement pension systems or
Right.
large pension systems do. This would be essentially self-funding from the town's available funds. For example, and I don't want to get too far off topic. I know you're talking
Right.
about 21 and 22, but the Finance Committee adopted free cash guidelines 2 years ago. And one of the buckets that free cash could be put in, or that they set aside for, was for OPEB funding, future OPEB funding. And they targeted an amount of free cash, not less than 10%, to be put into an OPEB trust fund every year once it was established. So there would be programmatic funding with that, in addition to other, I would hope, non-tax revenue sources.
Right. But isn't $4 million sort of equal to what we just paid for a whole new highway building? I mean, if we're talking about sort of comparing limited money, because this money, if it doesn't go to OPEB, could go to other things in town. We could buy 4 new ladder trucks for that amount of money. I mean, just want to say that money doesn't grow in trees. It is limited. And at some point we have to make tough choices about what we spend it on, one thing versus another.
So if I could just interject, I would say that, that's really part of this discussion, right? So it's to talk to you about some ideas that we have that would help fund this. So, coming up with some strategies that other communities use to help pay for retiree insurance. And, I do understand that you're not running a private business, but you do have to compare yourselves with other municipal peers. And so you are in the minority of what other cities and towns are offering. So that is something that is a challenge. And so really the goal is to try to figure out how we can meet this challenge, how we can overcome this challenge and make the town of Berlin a competitive employer among your other peer cities and towns.
Don't we already pay a little bit less than the average, because we're a smaller town, so we can't compete for the larger management jobs already with Hudson and Worcester and Marlborough and Clinton, correct?
Not necessarily, but we do have a listing of comp towns. We'd at least want to look at those comp towns where we look at market comps to see how our employees are being paid compared to theirs, and vice versa.
And that was going to be one of my questions too, is like, what other towns size-ish of Berlin, what are they doing? We can't be, we seem to be the only one not doing this, but there's got to be, Jill, as you were mentioning, creative ways to come up with, whatever that figure is, the 134,000 a year, without it hitting people's checkbook, twice a year.
And it's not a set bill. It's the same every year. You can go a year without funding it if you don't have the money. As long as it's there at the end, retirees pass away and your population changes. There's also the possible elimination of elected officials, which right now is a good part of the expense. So there's a lot of things you can do. And don't think it's the same amount of money every year for the 20 years or the 30 years. It varies.
There might also be ways to incrementally fund it at a lower threshold than the statute requires. So rather than the 50% and funding $134,000 a year, maybe there's a way to look at starting to fund it at 10%, using available cash, where at least you're doing something incrementally rather than going full-fledged into the adoption of Section 9A.
One of the things we found out with the actuary is because of all these changes every year, you usually have a redo of the actuary studies at least every 3 years to see where you're at. It goes up and it goes down.
Yeah, it's a good practice to keep an eye on it every few years and check what the OPEB liabilities may or may not be. The actuaries also shared with us that the elected officials on the insurance do add about $1 million to that liability. So just kind of keeping in mind that, that's potentially a way to help fund this retiree contribution. And again, as Margaret said, that would be something that we would want to put some thought into and not just, pull the rug out from under everyone. Probably something that would need to be done incrementally over time and perhaps after certain terms are over, so that nobody is surprised and something that you can plan for. So, these are just concepts and, high level ideas that we wanted to present to you. Some other ideas that we had were offering what many communities do called an opt-out policy. And this is actually something they do also in the private sector. An opt-out policy would also allow basically a stipend to be given to employees who are eligible for the health insurance, but then decide not to take the plan through the town. So they would be given a lump sum stipend, which could be anywhere from, $1,000 to, $5,000. You could define how you wanted to do it. And it would incentivize some people perhaps to not take your plan. And you could take the money that would have been spent on their premiums, for instance, $30,000 a year per person, and put that aside for retiree contributions. So that's just one thought that you could do. And then again, if the elected officials, if you decided at some point that you wanted to phase that out, you could do the same. You could take the money that you would have spent on those enrolled in that plan and continue to fund the retiree contributions with what you would have paid with that for their premium. So that's just another idea. We also talked about ARPA funding, which we know is a one-time deal, so maybe not the best, but it could be something that you look at, taking a portion of that money to put aside for retirees. It really just depends on how interested this board is in approaching retiree contributions. And then once you make that decision, then we could really pull together a plan. But these are just sort of high level thoughts.
No, and I mean, Sheila, for me, these are good because you always hear, oh, we need retiree, but I think, the follow-on comma, but it's going to cost the town X amount of dollars. That part of the question never happens. It's just, we need this. So, by you and Dennis taking the time today, and Margaret too, and starting to toss out some numbers and start out, tossing out some timeframes with different ideas, I think it's going to help with the discussion of, we need retiree benefits. So I'm, thank you for everything that you've provided. It definitely is cause for more thought, more questions, more outlines, more strategies. We got to figure out what our options are if this is something that Berlin really wants to do, or how much Berlin really wants to do.
Yeah, these are not easy decisions.
No.
These are really, really big ticket items, but this is really a big priority for you. So it's important that we just explore all the options and talk about maybe some of the things that we really don't want to talk about. But I think, it's helpful to have these discussions. Yes. And if anyone else has any ideas, absolutely open to them. But, and I've always got my ear out with my other clients in other cities and towns to see how they have done this. And I've worked with other communities who, offered 50% contribution, and that became a problem, and their retirees wanted higher than 50%. So that's, not necessarily something this town would have to contend with, but I think you're at the other end of the spectrum, but it's doable. I guess that's the takeaway, is that you do have some tools here that you can work with, and starting with invoking section 21 through 22 could give you an immediate revenue source that could start to kick it off and continue that as you make your decision, toward future funding. So that's really the takeaway here. Okay.
Thank you.
And then I did want to go through the timeline with you. If you have a minute, I could review that, and then we can kind of come back to this if you'd like.
Absolutely. Because I keep turning off to the side looking at your suggested timeline. So it's not that I'm not paying attention. I'm just looking on the other screen. There you go. That's what I'm looking at.
Can you see it now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I just changed over to the timeline. So this is just an overview of what we discussed last year. So the suggested timeline for invoking and implementing section 21 through 22. So this is today, and then a year ago, you adopted sections 21 through 23. So the next steps are really related to section 22. And I just want to kind of recap on that. So section 21 is really just adopting the process. So you have already done section 21. Section 22 is making copay changes with your existing health carrier, which would be with Maya. And section 23 would be if you were going into the GIC. So since you're not considering going into the GIC, section 23 is not part of this discussion. So it's really just focusing on section 22. And so after we talk about this today, the next step will be whether you decide to invoke. So I'm assuming that you'll make that decision over the next month or so and decide if you'd like to do that for July 1st. So, working backwards from July 1st, it really means that you would have to make a decision and have to vote to invoke either at your January 10th or your January 24th meeting. And really, to invoke, it just means that somebody makes a motion to start the process. You don't have to do a bunch of paperwork. It's really just a decision that this board makes. And then you would also want to decide on what you want to propose to the PEC. And the PEC is the Public Employee Committee that would be made up of one member of each union. So I believe that's police and fire. And then one representative from the retirees. So you would actually have a 3-person PEC board that would meet with me and probably Margaret and Dennis. And what you would do is provide a proposal. And by proposal, really, it's the plan design that you want to propose. And you would propose the savings calculation, which I have given to you, which really produces that $51,000 savings to the town. I would go through that with the PEC. And just to kind of give you an idea of how the mitigation works and what the negotiations are regarding, is really just the PEC deciding together how they want to use that 25% mitigation. So the 25% is a given. This process requires that 25% of the first year's savings be given to labor and to the employees. So the decision is not whether they get that money. That has been decided. It's just how the money is given to them. So the town would propose a method of providing that 25% savings to them. And so there are different methods that you could give. So for instance, some communities do a premium holiday, which is basically reduced payroll deductions. Some just give every employee a check for the same amount. Some towns, the PEC wants a reimbursement program. However, I would not recommend that you propose that because it is actually costly and it would eat away their savings. So it would not be in their best interest to do a reimbursement program. So my recommendation to you would be to either offer the stipend, you know, the one-time payout, or a premium holiday. So that would really be the decision that the board needs to make as far as what you want to propose. And then once you decide that is when you would send out your proposal. So I'm suggesting that the latest you start this process is Monday, January 31st. And you would give that proposal, it's called a 5203 notice. And as soon as you notify the Insurance Advisory Committee of this estimated savings, and by the way, I put the whole proposal together for you. And then I'll help you draft all the letters that you need to do. So I'll be there with you the entire process. So that begins the process of the negotiations and the ticking of the time clock, if you will. And as you probably recall, this process has a really stringent timeline, and that's why I've laid it out here for you. It's scarier than, it's not as scary as it looks. It's not as bad as it looks. It's just a lot of formalities. So then within 10 days of receiving the proposal or the 5203 notice, the town would need to meet with the IAC. Then 2 days later, you have to notify the president of each collective bargaining unit and contact our RSCME, which is the Retired State and County Municipal Employee Board, and just let them know just identify who those PEC members will be. And then within 5 days of that, you have to designate who those representatives are. So it's really just formalities to get it going for the first couple weeks. You get a 2-day window then after that you have to take that same proposal, that same 5203 notice, and then instead of giving it to your IAC, you're giving it to now the representatives of the PEC. And now you have created a PEC. That's really the first couple weeks of the process. Let's see. So then I would meet with the PEC. We would all meet together. And we would go through the proposal again. So it's very repetitive and everybody understands what's happening. And then that is the beginning of the 30-day negotiation period. So around February 18th or possibly the following Monday, the 21st, is when that negotiation period would begin. And you have 30 days to meet with the PEC and go through this process and just have conversations about how they can use that mitigation. And you know, they can take as long as they want, but you know, it's in their interest to meet and make a decision quickly. And then as soon as an agreement is made, they can sign it. And then also within 3 days of the negotiation period, you do have to notify the Secretary of Admin and Finance to let them know that you've started the process. And you have to tell them who your representatives are for the insurance review panel. So the insurance review panel is sort of a safety net if for some reason after that 30-day negotiation period comes and goes and an agreement is not made, then it goes to a panel and the state would decide, that this 3-person panel would decide the decision on the mitigation. I can tell you right now that won't happen. That is very rare. It's only happened, I think, twice in the past 12 years. And there really would be no reason for that to happen. So it's, again, just a formality. And then within 10 days of receiving the notice, the secretary provides you or us with a list of 3 impartial members to serve on their panel, if it ever went to a panel. And then within 3 days of receiving the list, the PEC and this board would decide on who you want to be your impartial member, your 3rd person. So again, that's not going to happen. So basically you have the 30-day negotiation period and you've got to have a decision made no later than April 30th. And that's because the statute requires a 60-day advance notice to your employees if a plan design change is going to be implemented through this process. So April 30th is the absolute deadline. And you'd also need to let Maya know so that they can start processing the plan changes with Blue Cross. And then on July 1st, the plan goes into effect. And in between April 30th and July 1st, of course, you would hold meetings with Maya and Blue Cross for your employees so that everybody understands how the new plan works and, you know, any questions, that kind of thing. So that's really the process in a high level. But it does show, you know, that you've got to make a decision in, you know, by the end of January, because that really does bring you right through, you know, toward the middle to the end of March. And you don't want it to go any later than that. So I know I just threw a lot at you. Does anybody have any questions on the process, or is there anything a little fuzzy you're not really sure about?
No, and Jill, the only question that I have, and it's really not a question, it's just a confirmation, because, you know, here's Peg playing the devil's advocate, is that you're going to pull this committee together and somebody's going to look at the, you know, budget for mitigation proposal that you did, which is awesomely laid out. And they're going to say, well, can't we change the plan design? Can I get more, you know, money for savings mitigation? Can't I get 30% and not 25? We're locked in, correct? What we have is what we have, right?
That's a really, really good question. So the process permits the town to make changes up to the current GIC benchmark plan. Okay. And the current, right now, the current GIC benchmark plan is the Tufts Navigator. So we mirrored that plan with the Maya plan, same copays and deductibles, and it produces X amount of savings. So by statute, you cannot propose higher copays than that. And if you did, it would produce a higher savings, but it would be illegal. So the answer is the total savings cannot be higher. However, they can ask you if you want to give more than 25% back. But you can say no, because the statute only requires the
Okay.
town to give 25% savings back. If the town decided you wanted to give 30% savings, you certainly could do that if you came to that agreement.
Mhm.
But it's very uncommon to have
Okay.
anything like that happen.
Okay.
But they can't demand it.
Okay.
And it would never go to a panel because they demanded it, because no panel would allow it. It's not, you know, you're going to propose what is allowable in the statute.
Okay. Yeah, and that was just my question, is that I just wouldn't want somebody to come back to say, we want more, you know, we're not gonna play, we want more. So, you know, thank you for that. I appreciate it. Scott, sorry I cut you off.
No, that's fine. Because I think I just follow along, because I believe that one of the reasons that we invoked it last year but didn't go down this path, that this timeline path that is here, is that we were about to enter union negotiations with both unions, and the unions objected to us trying to sort of force the change on, and said they had ideas that would save save us money, that if the unions and us came to agree, we could make plan design changes. But I'm under the understanding that during the union negotiations, it was never brought up of, here's our ideas to save money on health insurance because we want benefits on other places. Is that correct, Margaret?
We haven't discussed it in that level of detail. That's correct.
Okay.
There's a request, obviously, to continue discussing it, but no solution based. There's no solutions at this point.
Right. Because I was kind of hoping that in the intervening year, they'd said, okay, the Maya benchmark is this, but what we'd rather, for us and our members, we'd rather have better benefits on, I'm just going to make all this up because I'm not privy to any of these negotiations, but we want better benefits in chiropractic, and we're willing to have worse benefits in dental. It would be a weird combination to make, but I'm just, for example, but none of that's ever come up. And so benchmark might be one of our better places to go, just because I mean, I don't want to wait. I don't want to be here a year from now, having waited again another year for something to come forward, have nothing come forward. There's also no connection between us adopting these chapters and making these changes to the benchmark and retiree health benefits. There's no legal linkage. There
Not
could
at
be
all.
a negotiated linkage, but there's no legal linkage between them.
Right. I'm presenting this together because
Mhm.
I just wanted to highlight that this could be a
Mhm.
potential launch pad to the funding that you need for retirees. But you certainly don't have to do both. And I would
Right.
just say that if you do go forward with invoking this and making these plan changes,
Mhm.
it would be beneficial not just for retiree insurance, but also because everybody's rates will go down about 15%.
Mhm.
And your rates of increase over the next few years will potentially be lower as well.
Mhm. And in theory, the 25,000 of employee benefits could go towards retiree health benefits if the group so chose, correct?
I'm sorry, could you ask that again, Scott?
The 25% that we're required to give back to employees,
Yes.
that the PEC is going to decide how to spend in some respects, that could go to the I forget the acronym, but for the retiree health liability.
I think it would be very unlikely that they would not want to put that in their pockets. Because
I agree that I agree that is probably way more likely. There is no
Yeah.
legal limitation to saying that
Oh,
they could not
no.
decide that they so want retiree health benefits. They're willing to put their $25,000, put their money where their mouth is, and put their $25,000 towards the $135,000 a year liability the town is likely to take on for this.
But that discount is only for 1 year.
Yeah.
Well, we're only required to give it to one. The $70,000 benefit is an ongoing benefit, and so.
Right.
But then
Yeah.
it would be a chance to show how much people really want retiree health benefits.
I think it's more likely they would say maybe the town could take their share
Yeah.
of the savings.
Yeah. You put in your 70,000, I'm pocketing in my
Well,
10.
but if they put in their 25 and we put in our 50, we're still only halfway there for the first year.
Yeah. So Jill, I have a quick, excuse me, on, so we need to make a vote on January 10th or January 24th. And Margaret, you know, you too. So do we need any additional information from you? Or do we basically have everything that we need to make a decision whether we're going to move forward to invoke section 22?
I believe you have everything you need. I can send you the statute if you'd like to actually, the link to the 32B section 21 through 23, because I've just boiled it down in a summary for you. But if you wanted to become a little bit more familiar with the statute, I could send that to Margaret to distribute to you. And I do have another timeline that's not drilled down quite this far. That's another high level. But you do have everything that
Okay.
you need is to make a decision. I think at this point, if you just had other questions, really is I'm always available.
Okay. All right.
And so for me personally, to be able to feel comfortable voting on the 10th or 24th, I since it was one of the union representatives that was opposed to us going down this path before, that I would be nice if we could proactively reach out to them and give the unions a chance to present even before we vote. So let's say we vote on the 24th, they could come on the 10th or sometime in December to give their arguments about why we shouldn't move forward with this. Because they had such strong feelings last time. I don't want to miss an opportunity to hear whether or not they now think we should move forward, or that we've somehow missed an opportunity of some sort.
And in fairness to all employees, and not just the collective bargaining employees, Jill, would you suggest that this be done through an IAC meeting?
Yeah, that actually would be what I suggest, is just to hold an IAC meeting, and they know that you have adopted these sections and that this is somewhat looming. So, they may appreciate having that discussion before it's on an agenda to vote.
And Margaret, could you, for the people who are watching at home or otherwise, explain what the IAC is and why that actually, you're right, is way more appropriate?
Yeah, the Insurance Advisory Committee is a group of employees, both collective bargaining employees and non-unit employees, who are appointed for the purpose of discussing this, employee health insurance benefits. So this would be a larger group of employees, not just collective bargaining, but they would be at the table. And I think this could be a broader discussion, because this change doesn't affect only collective bargaining units. It affects all employees who are eligible to subscribe. So that's why I suggested the IAC, or Insurance Advisory Committee, meeting.
I think that's great. And we could have, you could hold one of, I know there's holidays coming up, but you could hold one prior to us, because I'd like them to have a meeting and have their discussions and hear what the results or comments and feedback were before we vote as a select board.
Okay. No, thank you, Jill and Dennis.
Sure.
This has been awesome.
There was just one last thing I wanted to discuss before I say goodnight. That was just the flexible spending account proposal. So, and this certainly does go along with having an insurance advisory committee. It's another employee benefit. And so I was asked over the summer to go out to bid. Actually, we got proposals from multiple vendors who participate in administering flexible spending accounts, FSAs, or some people call them flex plans. And these are commonly used both in the private and public sectors. It's a way for people to set aside dollars from their payroll, from their paycheck, and it comes out of their paycheck pre-tax, and they can set a certain amount aside per year to be used to pay for co-payments, deductibles, glasses, braces, and many over-the-counter items that the IRS approves. And so it's a really nice, beneficial plan to offer to employees. And there are benefits to the town as well. It offers, it really kind of offers value add as an employer, giving your employees another tax advantage benefit. And it kind of rounds out your benefits package. It also, again, would make the town of Berlin a little bit more competitive with some of your other peer groups or peer towns. And it helps employees because they have put aside money they have budgeted for to help pay for costs that ultimately they're going to spend either way. Right. And especially if the town does decide, if this board decides to go forward with plan changes for July, they will have higher costs out of their pocket. So this will help offset some of those increased costs. So in addition to the mitigation 25% that the employees will receive, they could also have an opportunity to set up a fund, and they can put as much in as they want, up to the IRS limit per year. And there is actually a rollover feature. So many people are leery of doing an FSA because they hear of a use it or lose it feature, where if you put too much in and you don't spend it, you lose the money. Well, now there is a provision that allows the employer to set the plan up where you can roll over up to $500 into the next plan year. So that way you're not overfunding yourself. So this is something that might be a really popular plan, and it might really help those people who do end up with plan changes, right? So if you did decide to do this, the best plan that we got quotes for is actually through a company that is partnered with Blue Cross and Maya, and it's called Health Equity. And actually, my company, Cook & Company, uses them, so I personally can vouch for Health Equity. But there are many vendors out there, but this one ended up being the most cost effective. So it was about a $2,500 cost to pay for the administrative fee per year, and the administrative fee covers a debit card that allows employees to preload funds out of your payroll deductions onto a debit card that they can then use at the point of sale. So at the pharmacy, at the doctor, the eye doctor, what have you. So it's $2,500 to pay for the cards, and it's for the whole family. And it also includes coverage for dependent care if the town decided to do that. So it would be for medical costs as well as childcare. So there's
Dependent care could also include elder care, correct?
And elder care, yes, thank you, Margaret, and elder care as well. So again, it's pre-tax dollars, and it would be about $2,500 for the town to cover those administrative costs. So I just wanted to pass that on to you, and if anyone has any questions, I'm very happy to answer them anytime.
Could people who do not participate in the health insurance still get the flexible spending accounts?
Good question. Yep, they don't have to be enrolled on the health plan. And in fact, if you offer it to an employee, they can take it through you, and then their spouse can take it through their employer, which is actually what I do with my husband. So, it can really work to your advantage and help you as a planning tool. Like, for instance, this year I have to get a crown. So I put an extra 500 in there just to cover that.
Yeah, and I can tell you, I've had an FSA for years, and it's been awesome. So you look at it and you're like, crap, I have $700 left. What am I going to go buy?
Yeah.
Glasses. That's like chunk gone. And you know what, for those watching with a flexible spending account, Jill mentioned that it's on a debit card. You know what, you can't whiz over to McDonald's and spend it. It's going to deny. You can't zip into the gas station and shove it in and buy it. I used to work in that type of industry, and I would see all the transaction denials, and I would giggle at people trying to use it at the Chinese restaurant. Sorry, denied. So people don't have to worry about other folks trying to use it fraudulently. It's for FSA accepted, merchant codes, and that's it. Nothing more, nothing less. So I'm FSA all the way. It's good stuff. Okay.
It is good. I've participated
Yep.
in the past too, and it is very good having that savings, the pre-tax savings mechanism.
Yep, and the rollover feature is nice. I mean, you've got to use that up, what is it, first quarter? Jill, you've got to use your rollover funds in the first quarter, and then you still have access to all the money for that year too. So you may take out 1,700, but if 500 rolls over, you've now got $2,200 that you're sitting on. So you can go get stuff done and taken care of that you need.
Right. Yeah, there were some changes through the ARPA plans because of COVID. The IRS did tweak some of the restrictions and allowed unlimited carryover last year.
Oh, wow.
And then so there was no limit as to how long you could spend it. It just had to be spent in the next year.
Mhm.
However, those provisions could be changing. So we'll have to see how that shakes out.
We just got notified December 2nd that the IRS is up to $2,850 a
Wow.
year, and the rollover is up to $570. So
Wow. Yeah.
getting better and better.
Yep. And it's pre-tax dollars. So, right there, boom, chakalaka, that's a huge savings for folks. Okay. Well, Jill, you've certainly given us lots to think about. Gee, thanks.
Sorry about that. I really
No.
appreciate your attention though.
Jill, would you, should the board choose to discuss this on January 10th or 24th, will you be able to make it to go through this with okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Of course she will. Somebody knows where she lives. We'll go find her. All right. So just say it's all good. All right. Any other questions for Dennis or Jill? Scott, since I can't ask Chris.
No, I'm good. Thank you. I got
Okay.
my questions in and answered.
Awesome. Thank you. Very
Thank
much
you very much.
appreciate the both of you being here and supporting us.
All right. Happy holidays,
Thanks.
everyone.
Happy holidays. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah.
All right. Margaret, we are down to the town administrator report.
This is going to take me all of 2 minutes, I think. So first and foremost, for anybody who's attending or listening, there is going to be a ceremonial swearing in and pinning ceremony for new chief Eric Shartner. That's going to be on Monday, December 20th at 5:30 p.m. and that will be held in the public safety fire bays. So everyone is invited to attend. Tomorrow night, the school committee is going to be holding a meeting at which the school's administration is going to be introducing or presenting some preliminary budget information to the school committee. This is expected to happen at about 6:45 p.m. I understand that there could be some possible discussion about anticipated very large spikes in special ed costs that are going to cause issues with the school committee being able to stay in the town's parameters, the expectations that were sent to the school committee. So I'm hoping to attend. I know at least one finance committee member has said they're going to attend, and a member of the board is also welcome to attend. This is going to be in person at Tohoto. Last week, I met with Concom Chair Carolyn McDonald and representatives from Sudbury Valley trustees regarding grant programs that have opened up that could potentially fund more of the Laura property acquisition. So there were two particular grants that were discussed. One was a land and water fund grant, and the other was an MVP grant. So they are going to be working on contacting an appraiser who specializes in appraisals for land grants. And they are also preparing an expression of interest for the community one-stop program. So I'm going to hold it at that for now. Those are all the new items I'll share for now.
Scott, Chris?
No, I'll save my stuff for select board comments at the end.
Yeah, me too.
Fine, I have mine. I'll wait too. Okay, all right, so pressure, peer pressure. All right, so down to old business. Margaret, I know you sent around some information on the FY23 budget.
I did, and this is the very beginnings of but the budget development process. What you received yesterday, I can't remember when I sent it, but what you received first is not what's in there now. I've marked that one old, and I've
Those old.
updated it with some new added requests from departments. There is still a lot more to go. There are several boards and committees who are either meeting this week or will be meeting in the next couple of weeks, and will be getting us their requests by then. Some of the larger budgets, the big three, highway, police, and fire, are still undergoing review and will be added. I expect they'd be added in the next week or so. So we'll be, but again, without the intergovernmental section being filled in, particularly with education, we do have a huge gap there, and we will have to wait and see what's filled in there. So this is really just for the board's review at this point, and if you have any questions or comments on that, I'm happy to address those.
Oh, I think we're good.
I think we're good for now.
Okay, so where are we? We are on board vote on the ABCC form confirmation renewal.
Okay, this is the same thing the board took up last week. And I'm just asking that the board vote because all of your signatures were being applied to this. So a formal board action or a formal board vote would be appropriate. So I would suggest that the motion be to sign the renewal certification for FY22.
So moved.
Second,
All right, we like that. Stone eye.
Hawkins, aye.
Keith, aye.
There you go, Miss Margaret.
Okay.
Is that sitting out already waiting to be signed? I think
It
it
is.
might be waiting to be signed by me.
Yes. Yes.
So is this something that we're in person signing, or is this something that you're signing for us?
So it was put on the table to be in person signed.
Yep.
So
And who are you missing?
I'd have to go in the other office and look. I think it might be Scott.
Oh, okay. If I need to sign it,
Okay.
let me know.
Okay, I know that Peg
Wasn't
signed,
sure
but I
if I
haven't looked
signed
at
it
it
or not.
since.
Peg shows up with her own pen, her own black pen. So there you go, because Chris stole the other one. All
I
right.
didn't steal it.
Oh,
All right.
Connected
I'll
it
try to
me.
swing by. I am going into the office tomorrow, so I can
Okay.
swing by on my way back home.
Okay, thank you.
All right, up to new business. So Margaret, there's two recommendations for the Traffic Safety Advisory Committee. First one up is to amend the committee composition.
Yes, and I mentioned this at the board's last meeting, that on November 10th, the Traffic Safety Advisory Committee met and voted to replace the building commissioner's membership in the committee with one member at large to be appointed by the select board. So that's really the primary change on the committee composition. So if the board is comfortable with it, I would ask for a vote to make that change in the composition.
I just had a question. I
Mhm.
didn't know whether you felt it would be necessary to add that the building commissioner shall assist only in an advisory capacity
Oh,
as needed.
we could certainly add that. If the board would like to add that, we'll add that statement at the end.
Are you
I don't
guys?
have an issue. I think almost anyone in town could serve as an advisory appointment as needed because it's not voting.
Yeah.
So I'd pull in, someone from conservation if we're talking about signs that affect
Mhm.
conservation land and,
Yep.
but
Right.
I mean, adding it or not adding it's not gonna change my support of this. I support it.
Right.
Can I,
But
so can I
he
get a
was
motion?
member, though. He was
Yeah.
a member.
Yes.
No, he's not.
We
But he
could
could
add
be
something
right.
like the building commissioner or any other town official
Right.
may be called upon
Yeah.
on occasion to advise.
Just so they know.
Yep. You're up. Right. So can I get a motion based on that amendment, please?
So moved.
Second,
All right, put it to a vote. Stone eye.
Hawkins, aye.
Keith, aye.
There you go, Margaret.
Okay.
All right. And the second one up is to amend the street sign request form.
This is another easy one. The Traffic Safety Advisory Committee voted to recommend that the individual highway, police, and fire reviews be replaced with a Traffic Safety Advisory Committee review and recommendation, since the chiefs and the highway superintendent all sit on the Traffic Safety Advisory Committee.
Easy peasy.
I would make a motion to approve.
Second,
All right. Let's vote. Stone eye.
Hawkins, aye.
Keith, aye.
Here you go, Margaret. There's two.
I keep meaning to fill this out to ask for signs I think aren't needed anymore to be removed.
Oh, that's
Oh.
amazing. We don't
All
need a
right.
new form for that. Let's just keep.
Let's
No,
just
no, I
pull
think
them
this
down.
form works fine for it. I think this form is fine for it.
All right, so Margaret, you had also sent us multiple attachments on the from the Historical Commission funding approval request for the Bullard House stairway installation.
Yes, and there's also another request that I believe Historical Commission was voting on tonight, and that was to approve a change order on the sill work for $750. So my recommendation to the select board tonight is to approve the use of funds from 2017's Article 16 Bullet House renovation article up to $3,750 for those two items, subject to the Historical Commission's vote and recommendation tonight.
Sounds
So
good to
moved.
me. Second,
All right, thank you, thank you.
The balance
Historical-
remaining in that article, by the way, will be just over $11,000 after these expenditures.
Well, good.
Great.
That was my next question.
And it's, you know, to mirror one of Scott's comments from a couple meetings ago, it's nice to see that the Bullet House renovations are chugging along. You know, so that's, you know, kudos to that committee for the giddy up. All right, so we'll put it to a vote. Stone eye.
Hawkins, aye.
Keith, aye.
There you go, Margaret. Look
Uh,
at that. Mhm.
Margaret, do you know if this is a legal question, not a policy, but that could we use some of that $11,000 if we needed to like rent a storage bin, some bay somewhere to store like everything that's in the Bullard House in somewhere else while they're doing foundation and sill and other work? Would that be at least a legally permissible?
I'd
use?
have to look at the language that was approved by town meeting, and I can look
Okay.
at that and we'll see if that use would fall under the purpose of the article.
And again, I think it's a separate conversation whether that's a good idea,
Mhm.
but that I'd love to know whether or not it's legal before we go to step two.
Okay, we can check the language in the most recent article that expanded the purpose.
And then last up, before we get to board questions and comments, Margaret, any notices of intent to appoint?
No notices of intent to appoint tonight.
Okay, all righty. So.
We went through a flurry of those and now two
We
meetings in a
did.
row without one. Wow.
Don't you worry, we'll
This
get
is
back.
good.
Yeah.
This is good, I think, maybe.
This is good news. All right, so board's questions, comments, liaison updates. Scott, Chris, you both said you had one that you were gonna hold.
We voted at town meeting in November to potentially separate the town report from the warrant article for annual town meeting.
Mhm.
And so at some point soon, I'd love us to start talking about like, are we planning on doing that for fiscal year 23? What does that
Mhm.
mean for timelines?
Mhm.
Because if we separate them, the fiscal year that the town report covers is over, and we could start collecting the reports and start putting that together now. So
Mhm.
there's less work cramming us all together when we have to get out the warrant.
That's a very good question. Thank you for bringing that up, because Mary actually has noted that in the policy that the board previously adopted. So you're going to be getting a request for a policy amendment to reflect that change. Unless, you know, barring some unforeseen reason that the Attorney General's office won't approve this by February, this would be in place for the distribution of the next town report. So that'll come before the board before the end of this month.
And then secondly, and I probably could have done this as an email instead of here, but I got a disturbing email from Sarah Hosmer, who says that she works in our HR department, which is interesting to know because I don't believe we have an HR department. that said that the HR department is updating our office dress policy, and I need to click this link to do that. And so I don't know how many people got that or how many people clicked on said link. That would be a bad thing to click on because we don't have an HR department.
That's right. And that happened to be part of our cybersecurity testing program. So good catch.
See?
Did he pass?
I think everyone in the town's email domain it received that email. So hopefully no one opened it, because the state's IT division will be,
Right.
I'm sure, making record of whoever opened it.
Oh, thank God I can still wear jammy pants. Dear Lord, that was, there you go. All right. Scott, anything else?
No, I'm good for now then.
All right, Miss Chris, you're up.
So you were talking about, Margaret, were you going to call DPH earlier? We were talking about.
I was going to actually reach out to Jim Garafi rather than DPH to see if he knows what's going on at DPH, just to try to, try to connect the dots here. So
okay. I'm just curious what the school requirements are, like when they have someone who's close to someone who gets COVID and so on and so forth. I'm just curious if they're following the same rules as they had been in the past. And I don't know whether
receiving additional advice from Desi. I just can't speak to that because I don't know.
Right. I just didn't know whether Jim Gareffi would have the insight into that. And so
I can ask him that too.
If you could, from what I'm hearing, it doesn't sound like they're doing what were doing.
Okay, I'll ask him about the school's
curious.
protocol.
What is required?
Okay.
And then the other thing I just had down here, which I know it's such a bad time, but I did want you guys to think about something for volunteer appreciation.
Mm-hmm.
And, is it possible to even do anything like that until we can meet in person? Or if you have any ideas about what we could do instead, or, let me know.
You want me to pop it on an agenda? So we can
Well, if you want to have a discussion about it, otherwise,
okay.
Just let me know.
All right.
I mean, for me, this, although I'm fine with it being that narrow focus, as part of the larger item of civic engagement and involvement, I think that's one of the things is that I think that's one part of it.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
I just thought it'd be something as simple as, if there's a meeting we all go to, I'll get the pizza, or, something like that. So I'd be interested in any of your ideas.
Yeah, we're pretty creative. I'm sure we can come up with something.
All right.
All right. And then my question, I hate to ask, but I'm going to ask it anyways. Margaret, it's now December. November has come and gone.
Yeah.
Do you have any update on the $100,000 from Riverbridge? Maybe you've said that we have it in full and I've just missed it, or?
We have not received it yet. We've not received it yet. And I would like to speak to that a little more. We've actually been requested to have a follow-up meeting, our working group, a follow-up meeting with the Sennies. And my plan, what I'd like to do is reach out to them before our meeting and ask them to come to the meeting with a written payment plan proposal that we can discuss, because we have to do something.
Yeah, because I mean, it wasn't until last May, that we got our final payment from last November. So.
Oh, well, it was a partial.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you for that. All right. Anything else for updates and comments and things like that?
Nope.
All right. Okay. All right. So I'm going to drag this over here so I can read and look at you guys. So first of all, thank you for everyone who's attended tonight. Appreciate you being here. The board is going to enter into executive session. The board will enter executive session pursuant to Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel. Town Administrator, we will be adjourning from our executive session.
So before we vote, did you send us a link for executive session, Margaret?
It's
I
in-
did earlier today, I think.
It is, it's in the,
I can resend it.
it's in the email, Chris, if you look at, it was sent at 12:57.
Okay, I'll find it.
Oh,
Okay.
yes.
Scott, do you have it?
I do. I have, there was a response at 2:08 that moved it higher in my list, but
Okay.
12:57?
12:57.
it says document, it says documentation link for tonight's executive session is the subject line.
Yep.
Okay,
It has a
Alright.
word confidential in front of it, obviously.
All
Okay.
right. All right, so can we get a vote, please? Stone
Yep.
eye?
Hawkins, aye.
I swear to God, it is only hot cocoa that is in here. I promise you. There's like hot chocolate. See, look, there's my marshmallow in there. All right, so again, thank you all. We'll see you in a week. Stay safe, and I'll see you guys in a couple minutes.